So I may have cracked the code to outlining a book series by looking at one of my favorite manga series. I know it sounds weird, but bear with me, it'll make sense in a minute. Hello, my lovely inkblots, and welcome back to my channel, or hi if you're new here, my name is Ash, and I'm a writer and a VTuber among other things. And as some of you may know, I've been wanting to structure my own book series for a while now, and I had no clue on how to do it or where to start. I got some wonderful suggestions in the comments of the video where I made my writing goals, where I talked about wanting to do that, but the other night I was chilling in bed, and the solution just kind of hit me, and I had to run to my computer in the middle of the night to type out the outline for this video so that way I wouldn't forget it. Because yes, I do go back to my video scripts and reread things sometimes when I get stuck. So I noticed that individual books and full series kind of follow the same sort of structure. You have the introduction, the complication, the middle or the body, the climax, and the resolution with a potential for some sort of moral to be shared. Obviously, the introduction is when we meet characters and see what their version of normal is. The complication is when that normalness gets disturbed and the main problem of the series arises. The middle is all the smaller problems that arise that the characters have to overcome to solve the main big problem. The climax is how and when the main problem is solved, and the resolution is just, you know, heading to the end from there. Loose ends are tied up, characters have usually changed in some way, and in the case of a book series, this is where the seeds are usually planted for the next book, if it's not the last book. And believe it or not, I realized that I have been reading an awesome example of this for years now, which is the manga series by the title of Black Butler. You can actually see part of my collection above my head right now. And for those of you that know what Black Butler is, yes, I'm still into it. I got into it when I was 13, and autism does not let me let go of any of my interests, so I just kind of collect them. For the people that don't know what Black Butler is, I won't go into too much detail, but it's essentially a manga series that follows a young Victorian noble named CL in his quest to inflict suffering on those who murdered his family and humiliated him. He ends up forming a contract with a demon named Sebastian, who must serve him until his revenge is complete in exchange for his soul. And I've noticed that a lot of the arcs in Black Butler follow the exact structure that I mentioned just a moment ago. So, in order to talk about this, I will be using a specific arc from the Black Butler manga and anime to talk about how it lines up with the structure. I'm specifically going to use the Red Butler arc because that has been out for a while, and a lot of Black Butler fans, even the ones that haven't seen like the more recent seasons of the anime or haven't read a lot of the manga, will probably remember that one because it's one of the first arcs in the story. But to anyone who is interested in getting into Black Butler who may have happened to stumble upon this video, just know there are spoilers ahead. Also, as a side note, in this case, I am counting this arc as being equal to one whole book in a series, even if the arc is spread out over multiple manga volumes. I mean, in Black Butler, some of the arcs are literally called Book of Insert Whatever here, so yeah. Also, the series is a little dark, and certain things are going to get brought up, such as, you know, murder, so viewer beware. So now let's get into how the Red Butler arc follows this structure. So in the introduction, obviously, we get to see CL and Sebastian, but we also get to meet CL's aunt. I know her name is Angela, but I've always just called her Madame Red, and her supposed servant, Grell. We get a bit of a sense of who they are before things kind of go sideways, and we are immediately thrown into the complication of this arc, which is that there is a murderer that the press has dubbed Jack the Ripper going around and murdering workers. CL decides to get to the bottom of it. I can't remember if he's asked to by the Queen, because that's a thing, but yeah, he decides to look into it. So, over the course of trying to figure out who Jack the Ripper is, Ciel and Sebastian run into several snags. So, first they decide to go to the Undertaker, who is a character who is handling the funeral processions for all the victims, and they try to get information from him, but the Undertaker is a really funny character and is not willing to give them any information until one of them can make him laugh, which, you know, Sebastian has to do because Ciel isn't very funny. That's kind of the first snag, but through that they find out that someone must have had medical training in order to harm the victims in the way that they did. From there, they narrow down a list of suspects, but they realize that they're going to have a hard time getting to their prime suspect, which leads to Ciel having to go undercover to get close to him, which is really uncomfortable, especially because they learn that this suspect does have a human trafficking ring, but he's not Jack the Ripper. And another murder occurs while Ciel is undercover. Sebastian gets a hunch about who the culprit is and shares this information with Ciel, but we don't get to find out until later. But they decide to wait outside the next victim's home. And this is where the climax of the story kind of begins. So, despite waiting outside the home of the next victim, they miss Jack the Ripper getting by them. It's found out that Madame Red, Ciel's aunt, and Grell, who is her servant, are actually Jack the Ripper together, and that Grell actually isn't an ordinary human, but is actually a Grim Reaper, which explains how the murders were able to take place even when Madame Red had an alibi. We also get their motives for committing the murders, and then a fight breaks out, and in the fight, Madame Red is killed by Grell since she refuses to murder Ciel. Sebastian and Grell fight more, but Grell's eventually apprehended by another Grim Reaper and dragged away. The resolution of this arc comes not long after, with Ciel attending Madame Red's funeral, and we see some of his own feelings about the situation. It has an effect on him, and he feels regret for not being able to save his aunt and her victims. But he decides to continue on the path that he's placed on and chooses not to regret things that move him forward toward his ultimate goals. We also get a quick portion where Ciel's birthday is celebrated, and we see characters that are important for the next arc at the very end, which is what I meant by, you know, laying seeds for the next book. By now you might be wondering, okay, that's how the structure works for one book. But how does this apply to a series? Well, if we zoom out, it becomes a little bit more clear. The Black Butler manga is still ongoing, but it seems like we might be approaching the climax soon. At least I think. Volume 33 comes out next month. Or maybe this month, depending on when this video comes out. That's neat. But the Red Butler arc falls somewhere in the introduction for the series. It serves to introduce the Undertaker, who turns out to be a massive figure later in the story, and it also gives us more details about the protagonists and what their lives and personalities are like. I would argue that the complication for the series actually hits in a later arc of the manga, Book of the Atlantic, since the actual antagonist is revealed at that point, and everything since that arc has involved him. I don't want to get into the overall structure too much. I might make a video analyzing that specifically if people are interested in that. But every arc fits somewhere along this structure. We just don't have the climax and the resolution yet. But with that in mind, we should be able to do this with our own books. Each book should have its own arc, but the arc's purpose must align with parts of the overall structure. For example, if book 1 only covers the introduction stage, the book can cover an interesting arc, but it must work to establish the world and characters more than anything else. The complication is when the actual big bad of the series is revealed, and all the books and arcs after that are the middle, which are used to get to the climax and resolution, which are usually in the last book. Or maybe last 2 books. I have no clue how long your series is. But once you know how to play around with this structure, you should be able to use it to make book series of varying lengths. If Black Butler were a book series, it would already be about 11 books long, but it's still not to the climax yet. That's just going by arcs and where they fit on the timeline, not even by actual volumes in the series so far. I still can't believe that I got out of bed at 12 a.m. to write the script for this video. Really funny that I ended up working on this because I literally made a video talking about how I have no clue how to do any of this. Anyway, that's all I got for this video. Thank you for watching. Go ahead, leave a like, leave a comment, subscribe, whatever you want to do. Maybe award me for my lack of sleep. That would be nice. If anyone wants a video of me breaking down Black Butler's story structure, let me know. It actually sounds like a lot of fun, but I'm not sure if anyone would actually watch it, so yeah. But anyway, I hope you guys have a wonderful day, and hopefully I will see you in the next video. Bye!